Penn State football gets another commit. It's that time of year. You're going to be seeing our faces all the time over the next couple of weeks. I'm Thomas Frankar. That is Sean Fitz. He's the publisher and a recruiting insider for Blue White Illustrated. Another commit in the secondary. It's like ping pong. It's like back and forth between Terry Smith and Anthony Poindexter. So Fitz, welcome to the show and give us the latest on what's going on with the Nittany Lions in the class of 2025.
The latest is a point for Dex. Braswell Thomas, a safety from Pleasantville High School in Cape May, New Jersey. South Jersey boy added to the mix. This was one that we labeled coming into the weekend as the guy that was probably the most on commit watch. So not a big surprise. We're recording this on Saturday ahead of an expected announcement from Thomas. So I think it's a pickup for Penn State in the sense that you've got many names on that board, safety, corner, whatever, some athletes that sort of toe that line between each position. But Thomas is a big-bodied safety, a little bit bigger than Antonio Branch, who's actually a pretty long safety in his own right, who committed earlier this week. So Dex has a type, 6'2", 185 is this type, and he's going to continue to get bigger.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. You take a look, and we always start with where a player is in the On3 industry ranking and in the On3 rankings internally. He just got switched over to safety on the database because this is where Penn State expects him to play. He's been primarily a receiver recruit. How has that gone down throughout his recruitment to where he is right now as a commit in this class?
He always carried that athlete tab. If you watch his film, you can see why some schools liked him as a receiver initially. I just think it's one of those guys that when he fills out, he's going to fill out as a defensive player. 725 on the On3 industry ranking, number 57 safety nationally, number 25 in New Jersey. And again, I think this is one of those guys that he's going to continue to move up. I'm stunned. I stunned myself by getting through the opening without mentioning Peter Gonzalez. But this is a situation
there we go,
like last year, where this is a guy that had a check mark beside his name. One of those offers that one of those 400 offers that Penn State threw out, really wasn't much on the radar, but came back, camped in early June, and that made all the difference. He came back and he earned a spot. And I think that there's something to be said for that when you can go out in a situation where the odds are overwhelmingly stacked against you. He was not the only 2025 prospect with an offer that came to camp for Penn State this summer, and so far he's the only one that's turned that into a committable offer, we'll say. So I think there's something to be said for that, for putting himself in the position to do that. He did that as a safety. He came out and he lowered his numbers dramatically. He ran a 4.4940, which we thought was a 4.6 kid based on prior testing numbers and things like that. 4.3 shuttle, which is pretty darn good. 6'2", 185, good length, good explosion and things like that. Really caught Dex's eye in position drills and things like that. So I think it's there's encouragement from this one because this is a guy who has really improved himself in the next year. We have him at On3 as an 86 3-star. I'll call my shot and say he's going to end up higher than that.
Yeah, that's one of those areas where we talk about this where, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily just that he had an offer from Penn State, but he put in the work. So a guy that is a 3-star who commits to Penn State, it's not that they just accepted anybody. They found a guy who had reached that threshold, and maybe we're going to be catching up to that with some of those athleticism numbers and the size. So once again, add another maybe guy that fell between the cracks, an undervalued player that has athleticism traits. And you mentioned some of his numbers. The explosive metrics, they show up in the testing data, but when you look at the film, my word, this is a guy who jumps like Mike Gesicki at times. You see him on film where he's got a vertical that just doesn't seem to stop at certain points. So when you're looking at him as far as a safety and those composite skill sets, and what do you see as far as his traits and what he could be at Penn State?
What pops is the ball skills, the receiver skills that he has back there. And if you're watching this, I think we're only going on YouTube, but he goes up, high points the ball, finds it, and he does it in a sense that there's guys that look like they have to try hard to do that. He does not look like one of those guys. He looks like he can track the ball pretty naturally, understand where that point, I guess you call it the high point, but like the point of the
apex,
high efficiency there, where he's going to get the football. South Jersey quarterbacks like this guy, not just his own quarterback. He looks like a primary target on some of these interceptions. So it's going to be I think, a big step to the Big Ten, but you say that about a lot of these guys. The thing I'll keep going back to is Penn State still got some frontline safety targets on the board. I mean, JaDon Blair is on campus this weekend. This isn't a situation where Penn State ran through its top targets. I know Kino Winston committed to Michigan, but this is a situation where Penn State thought that he fit into that mix with Branch, with Blair, with Winston. So I think this is a pickup for Penn State that they're going to be encouraged by. Too bad if you're watching the YouTube, that guy just bit it as he
ate it.
As Braswell Thomas hit a double move on him. But no, this is not a fallback at all, I don't think.
Yeah.
If you look at how things went with Gonzalez last year, you're going to see a lot of the same things. You're going to see him continuing to ascend as a senior. You're going to see some of that that testing skills show up on his senior film as he moves forward and gets better. And he's going to come out, and I'm sure he's going to work with Dex again in July, and hopefully put himself in a position for a big senior year. This was an interesting one looking back at his entire recruitment. He's got a Georgia offer, he's got a Tennessee offer, he's got some really good schools that came through. I know Fran Brown was probably the one that offered him in Georgia before he went to Syracuse. So not exactly the bona fide Georgia offer, but he was on the radar for a lot of these schools. Academic troubles, I think, really hindered his recruitment. This is one from the start that you were like, I'm not sure if Penn State can take this guy, because you look at the grades and things like that, but he's improved himself on the field, or on the practice field, or the testing numbers and all that kind of stuff. I think he's done the same thing in the classroom. So just looking at that, credit has to be given here. Braswell Thomas, he's come a long way in the last year.
Yeah. There's a bunch of things I really like about him, and kind of in the same mold of Antonio Branch, a guy that I think got faster, and there's even more to give there, where you look at that bouncy athleticism and that verticality and explosiveness, you add another 10 pounds of muscle onto his frame, and presumably those traits will begin to develop. So somebody who's put in the work already, but there's still more to gain. And when you have a guy like this in this particular situation, I know the comments already on the video are he's a 3-star, blah, 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 right? Penn State failing in recruiting. But when you are looking at a 3-star, like, again, mentioning a Peter Gonzalez, somebody who has those athletic traits to outperform, as opposed to a guy, as you've mentioned, certain players reach a threshold that they mature early in college. And we have the numbers and the data to say that this guy is continuing to move up in that development curve. So the thing that I find interesting is, you mentioned he's a receiver. He looks like a receiver playing safety at times when he's playing. Specifically, he's moving schools, by the way. So Lower Cape May, the competition not exactly up to his standard, and moving to Pleasantville for the 2024 season. So I'm not particularly well versed in the New Jersey public school system, but that looks like a step up in competition for him this coming year. That'll be a great indicator of where all of these things have gone. But the main thing I would say is that he is a great safety prospect who still needs to learn the position, and especially in run defense, where I feel like the instincts on when to trigger, when to close, when to bring lay the wood, not necessarily there yet. And of course, the tackling and all that stuff tacked on top of that. But as you mentioned, Anthony Poindexter has a reputation of finding these guys with big frames that develop into complete safeties from a physical profile standpoint. So where do we go from here with Braz Thomas and also the rest of the 2025 class?
Yeah, we'll start with Braz Thomas. You look at the type of player that's come in, and I don't know that Thomas is an early impact. I don't know that Branch is an early impact, but we kind of view these safeties like we view tight ends. A lot of times these guys that are going to play safety at the college level are not playing a true safety position at the high school level. Braswell Thomas and Branch line up at corner, they line up at safety, they line up as like a box field backer. Like they're all over the place, because that's what's best for their high school team. That's how they can help out their current team. And naturally that's the way that they should be doing it. But I think he's going to continue to evolve as he gets some of this stuff down. I think a redshirt year would do him well physically, and also his ability to sort of catch up to the speed of the Big Ten game, catch up to it's the combination of speed and physicality there. And a lot of tight ends don't have that physicality aspect of it. A lot of safeties when they get to college, and some do. Vabu Torre's got it. You've got some of these guys that you hope have it coming in that can maybe fill that fourth safety spot this year. But a lot of these safeties are learning a completely new position, even if it's the position they played in high school.
Yeah, that's a great point. That you've got tight ends that need to learn to run blocking. You've got safeties that need to learn to fill in the run game at certain points, because you're taking some of these really good athletes from the perimeter and moving them closer to the ball. Is this going to be a big defensive back class? Because I know that, as you mentioned, still some top targets on the board. I'm not asking for you to project anything, but there are still some big names left out there. So is Penn State in a situation where they're wrapping up that, or is there more room for some of those guys in this class?
There's always room for the right guys in terms of length, speed, guys that can run real well. But at the same time, it's not really a situation where you're stretching all that much. And I think that's another encouraging thing when you're talking about Thomas committing right now. Like, flatly, if he did not perform the way that he did at camp in June, he wouldn't be a part of this. So it's not a situation like he went up instead of Penn State going down, I think is the way to go about this. And by the way, I got some numbers here, and I meant to make them in my last point. He dropped 0.2 of a second from his 40 and about 0.4 of a second from his shuttle from camp a year ago.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Right there. So, but on the lookout here, Brandon Finney, the obvious name. He's at Oregon right now for an official visit, pending when this runs. But Penn State's hopeful to get him into the class next week. JaDon Blair, of course, is here. And I think Penn State ready to wrap up that corner class. Dwayne Galloway was supposed to visit this weekend, or was scheduled to visit originally this weekend. Penn State, that visit never happened. So I think you kind of feel where Penn State feels they are in the secondary class. So while it's getting closer to wrapping up, it's not done yet.
Yep, so there's some big names left on the board that are going to be making decisions coming up in the next couple of weeks. So you got to subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. First off, subscribe here to the YouTube channel so that you get all the information and you get the recaps and you get to see all the pretty graphics and the highlights. But also, go in depth. Get the T. Frank's film room that follows these. Get the deep dives from Sean Fitz, how the commit breaks down in the class. All that stuff over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Plus interviews with either coaches, players, or people surrounding those commits when they make the decision to join the Nittany Lions. Code PSU1, 2 months for $1. We're getting closer and closer and closer to that, taking you into training camp. So it's not just recruiting. If you enjoy Penn State football, get on the bus. BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I'm Thomas Frank Carr for Sean Fitz. We will be back with the next Penn State breaking news here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel.